Chapter 1. In the dense jungle surrounding the ancient Mayan city of Palenque, where the temple pyramids rose like guardians over the green canopy, lived a young man named Chaac. He was the son of a stonemason, a humble craftsman who had shaped the great blocks that built the city's walls. Chaac had grown up with the sound of hammer strikes and the scent of damp earth, but his heart beat for something else. Pok-a-tok, the game that was more than play, it was a dance with the gods themselves. The ball, made from hard rubber tapped from the trees, was as heavy as stone and bounced with a force that could shatter bones. Players were forbidden to touch it with hands or feet, only hips, elbows and knees, and the goal was to send it through a small stone ring set high in the wall. But in Palenque, pok-a-tok was more than sport. It was sacrifice, a way to appease the rain god Chaac and the war god Ixchel. Losers risked everything, sometimes even their lives. Chaac was 18 winters old, his muscles shaped by endless hours of training on the sacred ball court. His skin was sun-bronzed, and his eyes burned with a fire from deep within his soul. He had watched the game since childhood, hidden behind stone pillars while warriors clashed. Once he had witnessed a losing captain sacrificed atop the pyramid, his heart ripped out as the crowd roared. It did not frighten him, it ignited a flame. "One day I will play for the gods," he had whispered to his best friend, Ixchel, a girl with long black hair and a spirit as free as a jaguar. Ixchel was the daughter of the priest Balaam, interpreter of the stars and offerer of maize to the heavens. She was unlike the other girls who wove cloth or ground corn. She slipped into the ball court in secret to train with Chaac. "Why should only men play?" she always asked, her voice brimming with defiance. Together, they practiced at dawn when mist still lingered over the jungle. Chaac taught her to control the ball with her hip, to duck from an opponent's strike. But now, in the shadow of an approaching catastrophe, their secret training would be put to the test. The city of Palenque faced a drought unseen for generations. Rivers dried up, maize fields withered, and whispers spread of the gods' wrath. King Pakal the Great, the wise ruler with his long beard and jade crown, convened the council. "Only pok-a-tok can appease Chaac," he declared from his palace throne. "We shall hold a tournament, the greatest since our ancestors built these pyramids. The victors will win honor and riches. The losers, they will be sacrificed to bring the rain." The news spread like wildfire through the city. A shiver ran down Chaac's spine when he heard it. He had dreamed of playing, but not like this, not with death as the price. Yet, when he met Ixchel at their hidden clearing by the river, he saw determination in her eyes. "We must enter," she said. "If we win, we can save the city, and I will play with you." Chaac laughed at first, but realized she was serious. Women were forbidden from playing pok-a-tok. It was taboo, an affront to the gods. But Ixchel was stubborn. "I'll disguise myself as a boy. No one will notice. Think of it, Chaac, we are the best team. You with your strength, me with my speed." They trained harder than ever. The jungle echoed with their shouts as the ball thudded against the ground. Chaac learned to anticipate Ixchel's movements, to pass at just the right moment, but danger lurked. One evening, as they practiced, footsteps rustled in the brush. It was Ixchel, a rival warrior from another clan. Tall and muscular, scarred from past games, he narrowed his eyes when he saw Ixchel. "What are you doing here, a girl on the court? That is blasphemy." Chaac stepped in front of her. "It's none of your business, Ixchel. Leave." But Ixchel smiled coldly. "Oh, it is my business. I will play in the tournament, and if you cheat, the gods will punish you. Perhaps I'll tell the priest." Helpless, Chaac and Ixchel watched him vanish into the darkness. Their secret was now in peril. That night, Chaac lay awake in his hut, thoughts swirling. How could they win if they weren't even allowed to play? But deeper than fear burned ambition. He would not let drought claim his people. He would play, and he would win. The next day, the tournament began. The ball court, a long rectangle flanked by sloping walls and stone rings, filled with thousands of spectators. Drums thundered, incense smoke rose to the sky. King Pakal sat on his platform, surrounded by feathered priests. Teams from across the realm had come, the fierce warriors of Tikal, the swift runners of Kapan, and Palenque's own hopefuls. Kainish's team consisted of himself, Ixchel, disguised with cropped hair and bound chest, and 2 friends. Hunahpu, a strong defender, and Yaxkin, a cunning forward. They called themselves the Jaguar Warriors. Their first match was against a nearby village team, the Serpents. The ball was released, and chaos erupted. Kainish felt adrenaline surge as he lunged forward. The ball bounced high, and he struck it with his hip, sending it toward the ring. The Serpent captain blocked with a violent knee. The impact echoed, pain shot through Kainish's body, but he rose again, eyes locked on the ball. Ixchel moved like a shadow, quick and unpredictable. She ducked under an attack, spun and passed to Hunahpu. The crowd roared, point after point built up, but the Serpents fought dirty, secretly tripping opponents. Once, Yaxkin was struck in the face, blood streaming from his nose. Midway through, with the score tied, Kainish spotted Palenque in the crowd, eyes fixed on Ixchel. Had he recognized her? Panic swelled, but Kainish focused. The ball came soaring, and he leapt, striking it perfectly with his elbow. It sailed through the ring, score, but the Serpents countered fiercely. Their captain rammed Ixchel with his hip like a wall. She dodged at the last second, but stumbled. The ball rolled free. Kainish sprinted, but too late, the Serpents scored. Now it was tied again. Drums quickened, the crowd stamped, sweat strung Kainish's eyes. He whispered to Ixchel, "We must win this." She nodded, fire blazing in her eyes. Final minute. The ball ricocheted wildly. Hunahpu passed to Kainish, who feinted a shot and instead sent it to Ixchel. She sprinted, leapt, and with a perfect hip strike, sent it through the ring. Victory! The people erupted in cheers, but Kainish felt no relief. This was only the beginning. Next awaited the Jaguar Warriors, infamous for their brutality, and Palenque's gaze followed them as they left the court. That night, firelight flickered as the team gathered. "We are good," Hunahpu said, "but Tikal will crush us if we're not careful." Ixchel sat silently, her disguise still intact. Kainish looked at her. "Are you afraid?" "No," she answered, "but Palenque knows. He will expose us." Kainish clenched his fist. "Let him try. We play for the city, for the rain. Nothing will stop us." But deeper in the jungle, Palenque plotted. He had recognized Ixchel's grace, her movements. "A woman on the court," he muttered. "This is my chance to win without playing." He crept toward the temple of priest Balam, ready to whisper the truth. Morning rose with a hot wind. The tournament pressed on. The Jaguar Warriors faced Tikal. These warriors were like monsters, tattooed with skulls, wielding obsidian weapons. The ball was released, and all hell broke loose. Tikal struck first. Their captain, a giant named Puch, slammed Kainish with a hip like a hammer. Kainish flew backward, crashing hard. Pain exploded in his side, but he rose. "Come on," he shouted. Ixchel seized the ball, weaving through defenders. She passed to Yaxkin, who shot miss. Tikal countered, scored. The crowd gasped. The match was war. Blood spilled, bones cracked. Hunahpu blocked an attack but took a knee to the gut. He vomited, yet fought on. Fear clawed at Kainish, but he pushed it away. He seized the ball, sprinted toward the ring. Puch charged, but Kainish ducked, spun, and struck. Through the ring, the score tied, but Tikal was relentless. They taunted, shouting insults to rattle their foes. "Weaklings of Palenque," they jeered. Ixchel ignored them, her focus sharp as an arrow. She stole the ball, sprinted like the wind. Puch thundered after her. She leapt, struck with her knee, score. Now they led. But in the crowd, Palenque moved. He had spoken with the priest. Balam stepped to the king, whispering in his ear. The match raged. One final point would seal it. The ball bounced. Kainish caught it. He saw Ixchel passed. She struck, but Puch rammed her brutally. She fell, her disguise slipping. Hair tumbled free. The crowd fell silent. Priest Balam rose. "Stop, that is my daughter." Chaos erupted. Guards rushed forward. Kainish shouted, "No," but the king raised his hand. "The game is void. They have defied the gods." Kainish's world shattered. They had won the match but lost everything. Ixchel was seized, dragged away. Palenque's triumphant smile gleamed. In the dungeon, chained to the wall, Kainish and Ixchel sat. "It's my fault," she whispered. "No," he said. "We fought together, and we are not finished." Outside, the drought raged on. But in the darkness, they forged a plan. The tournament was not over. They would escape, return, and win for real. The struggle had only begun. Chapter 2, the darkness of the dungeon was suffocating, as if the underworld itself, Xibalba, had swallowed Inish and Ixchel. The damp air smelled of mold and fear, and the only sound was the dripping of water from a crack in the stone wall. Inish's wrists ached where the iron chains cut into his skin, but his mind was alert, focused. Ixchel sat across from him, her face partly hidden in the shadows, but her eyes glowed with defiance. They had lost their first victory, exposed before all of Palenque, but Inish refused to let their dream of saving the city be crushed. The drought raged outside, the maize fields had turned to dust, and the people were starving. The pok-a-tok tournament was their only hope of appeasing the gods, and they weren't out of the game yet. "We have to get out," Inish whispered, his voice low so as not to wake the guards outside. "If we don't play, the city dies." "And so do we." Ixchel nodded, her cropped hair hanging in sweaty strands. Her disguise as a boy had been torn apart when the guards seized her on the ball court, and now her identity was revealed. That a woman had played pok-a-tok was blasphemy, a crime punishable by death, but she was not afraid. "I saw a loose stone in the wall when they brought us here," she said. "If we can pry it free, maybe it leads to a tunnel. I've heard the temple has old passages." Inish smiled faintly. Her courage was like a torch in the darkness. "You're crazy, Ixchel, but that's why we're here." They began to work. The chains limited their movements, but Inish stretched as far as he could, kicking at the wall where Ixchel had pointed. The stone was ancient, the mortar around it crumbling with age. After what felt like an eternity, it came loose with a dull thud. Behind it was a narrow opening, barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. The air inside was cold, as if it came from the bowels of the earth. "You first," Inish said. "You're smaller," Ixchel glanced at him. "And if it's a trap, then we die fighting," he replied. She smiled, a flicker of the wild girl he had known since childhood. With effort she wriggled free of the chains. They were old and rusty, and her slender wrists slipped out with a painful twist. She crawled into the tunnel, and Inish followed, his broad shoulders scraping against the walls. The tunnel was tight and winding, leading downward, and soon they heard distant shouts from the guards who had discovered their escape. Time was short. The tunnel opened into an underground chamber, lit by faint beams of light seeping through cracks in the ceiling. The walls were covered in carved reliefs of pok-a-tok players, their bodies frozen in dramatic poses, as if dancing with the gods. In the center of the room stood a small altar with an ancient rubber ball covered in dust and cobwebs. A shiver ran through Inish. "This is no ordinary place," he whispered. "It's sacred." Ixchel touched the ball, and a faint vibration rippled through the chamber. "It feels alive," she said. "Maybe it's a sign from Chaac." Before Inish could answer, footsteps echoed in the tunnel behind them. The guards were close. They ran on, following another passage that sloped upward. After what felt like forever, they broke through a covering of vines and found themselves in the jungle, not far from the ball court. The moon shone pale over the pyramids, and the drums of the tournament echoed in the distance. The matches continued without them. "We have to go back," Ixchel said. "The tournament isn't over. If we can win the next match, maybe the king will forgive us." Inish hesitated. "You've been exposed, Ixchel. They'll never let you play again." "Then we'll convince them," she said, her voice hard as obsidian. "Or we'll play in secret. We are Jaguar Warriors. We don't give up." They crept through the jungle, avoiding patrols searching for them. At the ball court, they found Hunahpu and Yaxkin, who had been hiding since the chaos. "You're insane," Hunahpu hissed, though his eyes shone with relief. "We thought you were dead." "Not yet," Inish said, "but we need a plan. Tikal is our next opponent, and they're brutal." "And Palenque, he's the real problem," Yaxkin nodded. "He swore to destroy you. He's spreading rumors that you dishonored the gods. The people are divided. Some want to see you sacrificed. Others believe you're chosen." Inish clenched his fists. Palenque was not just a rival. He was a serpent, cunning and dangerous. But Inish had an idea. "We'll sneak into the next match. Ixchel, you'll wear a warrior's armor. We'll say you're a new player from a distant village. No one will recognize you in the chaos. The plan was risky, but they had no choice. The tournament was their only chance to save Palenque and themselves. They hid in an abandoned hut near the court and began preparing. Yaxkin stole armor from a sleeping guard, and Ixchel dressed in it, her face hidden behind a leather and feather helmet. She looked like a warrior, but Inish couldn't shake the dread gnawing at him. If they were exposed again, there would be no mercy. Morning came, and the ball court filled once more with people. Drums thundered, incense burned. The Jaguar Warriors stood ready, their bodies covered in tattoos and scars. Their captain, Puch, looked like a demon, his eyes cold as night. Inish's heart pounded, but he steadied himself. He, Ixchel, Hunarpu, and Yaxkin stepped onto the court as the Jaguar Warriors, and the crowd roared, some in joy, others in fury. Palenque stood at the sidelines, his smile poisonous. The match began in an explosion of motion. The ball was thrown in, and Puch struck it with his hip, the impact shaking the ground. Inish rushed forward, blocking with his elbow, pain stabbing through his body. Ixchel was relentless. They played as if born on the court, their movements flawless and brutal. Point after point went to them, and the Jaguar Warriors struggled to keep pace. Ixchel was like lightning, her agility their only advantage. She stole the ball from a Ixchel player, spun, and passed to Inish. He leapt, striking the ball with his knee, and it soared toward the ring but bounced off the rim. The crowd groaned. Ixchel countered, and Puch scored with an impossible shot. Halfway through, the Jaguar Warriors were trailing. Inish's body ached, and Hunarpu was limping, but Ixchel refused to give up. She caught the ball, ducked under Puch's attack, and sent it to Yaxkin. He shot, score, hope flickered again, but Palenque hadn't forgotten his vow. He had bribed a guard to watch Ixchel, and now he saw her movements, her grace. He whispered to the priest Balam, standing by the king. "It's her," he said. "The girl is playing again." Balam rose, his face dark with rage, but before he could shout, something unexpected happened. The ball, struck by Inish, arced through the air in a perfect curve and passed cleanly through the ring. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers. For a moment, everything was forgotten, the blasphemy, the fear, the drought. The Jaguar Warriors had achieved the impossible, but the joy was short-lived. Balam pointed at Ixchel and shouted, "Seize her!" Guards rushed forward, chaos exploding once more. Inish threw himself in front of her, but a guard struck him on the head with a club. The world went black. When he awoke, he lay in another cell, this time inside the temple itself. Ixchel was gone. Hunarpu and Yaxkin sat beside him, their faces grim. "They've taken her to the altar," Hunarpu said. "They say she will be sacrificed at dawn." Inish felt his blood turn to ice. "No," he growled, "we'll save her. And we'll win the tournament." "It's impossible," Yaxkin said. "We are prisoners, Ixchel has advanced, and Palenque, he's with them now." Inish rose despite the pain. "Then we'll do the impossible for Ixchel." For Palenque, footsteps echoed outside the cell, but it wasn't the guards, it was an old woman, a shaman named Zotz, who had slipped inside. She carried a key and a cloak. "I saw you on the court," she whispered. "You are chosen. Chaac spoke to me in a dream, follow me." They escaped once more, through the temple's corridors, toward the altar where Ixchel was held. But Ixchel awaited them, and Palenque had joined their ranks, his eyes burning with vengeance. The match was not over, and the war had only just begun. Chapter 3. The jungle lay silent at dawn, but beneath its green canopy tension pulsed like an invisible heartbeat. Inish, Hunarpu, and Yaxkin followed the shaman Zotz through the thickets, their steps muffled by centuries of fallen leaves. Zotz, her wrinkled face and eyes that seemed to pierce through the mists of time, led them toward the temple where Ixchel was held captive. Her cloak, woven from fibers of the cyber tree, fluttered like a shadow in the wind. "Chaac has chosen you," she had said when she unlocked their cell, "but the gods only aid those who dare to fight." Inish held those words in his heart, though fear gnawed at him. Ixchel was to be sacrificed at the first rays of the sun, and time was their enemy. The temple loomed before them, a colossal stone crowned with feather-adorned pillars. Guards patrolled the entrances, their spears gleaming in the moonlight. Zotz pointed to a side passage hidden behind a wall of vines. That leads to the sacrificial chamber, she whispered, but be cautious. Palenque is inside, and he is not alone. Kainish nodded, clutching the knife Zotz had given him, a simple obsidian blade, sharp enough to slice through bone. The pain from the match against Tikal still throbbed in his body, but his resolve was stronger. Ixchel was more than a friend. She was the soul of their team, the fire that drove them. He would not let her die. They slipped into the passage, narrow and damp, with the scent of earth. The walls were covered with glyphs telling of ancient heroes, pok-a-tok players who had battled the underworld itself. Kainish wondered if their fate would be written the same way or if they would simply be forgotten. Hunahpu, walking behind him, was silent, his breathing heavy. Yaxkin, ever cunning, kept watch to the rear, ready for an ambush. When they reached the chamber, a low murmur echoed like a prayer. Torchlight cast shadows across the walls, and there, bound to a black stone altar, lay Ixchel. Her face was pale, but her eyes blazed with defiance. The priest Balam, her own father, stood above her with a sacrificial knife in hand. Palenque stood at his side, his smile like that of a venomous serpent. You thought you could blaspheme against the gods, he sneered at Ixchel. Now you pay the price. Rage boiled within Kainish. He signaled to Hunahpu and Yaxkin, and they lunged. Kainish tackled Palenque, the two rolling across the floor in a storm of blows. Hunahpu seized Balam, who cried out in shock, while Yaxkin cut Ixchel's ropes. Run, he shouted, but the guards were already upon them, alerted by the uproar. Spears lowered, chaos erupted. Kainish fought Palenque, who was stronger than he had expected. A fist slammed into Kainish's jaw, pain exploding, but he held on, driving the knife toward Palenque's side. Blood welled, yet Palenque laughed. You cannot stop me, he hissed. Tikal will win the tournament, and I will have the glory. Ixchel, now free, leapt into the fight. She tore a torch from the wall and swung it at a guard, who screamed as fire seared his arm. Together they battled toward the exit, but Balam's voice thundered. You dishonor Chaac, you condemn us all. His words echoed, and for a moment Kainish faltered. What if the priest was right? What if their actions angered the gods? But Zotz stepped forward, her voice like thunder. Chaac speaks through courage, not sacrifice. She raised her hands, and a wind swept through the chamber, as though the jungle itself were listening. The guards hesitated, fear flickering in their eyes. It was all the Jaguar Warriors needed to escape. They fled into the night, back into the jungle. Zotz led them to a hidden cave where they could finally breathe. You are not safe yet, she warned. The king has declared you outlaws, but the tournament is not over. The final is tomorrow, and Tikal stands as the favorite. If you can win, the people may see you as heroes, not heretics. Ixchel, still trembling with adrenaline, nodded. We'll play, but how? They know who I am. Zotz smiled, her teeth gleaming in the cave's darkness. The gods hide their chosen. I can give you a disguise even Balam will not see through. She drew forth a pouch of powder made from plants and minerals. This will change your face, your voice, but it lasts only a day. You must win before the sun sets. Kainish looked at his friends. Hunahpu was injured, his arm swollen from a blow. Yaxkin was exhausted, yet his eyes still shone with cunning. Ixchel was their heart, and she was ready. We'll do it, he said, for Palenque, for the rain. The night was spent in preparation. Zotz painted Ixchel's face with the powder, reshaping her features into those of a stranger, a harder jawline, a darker skin tone. She looked like a warrior from a distant city. They stole new armor from a guard post and practiced their movements in the cave. The ball they had found in the underground chamber, the one that seemed alive, now lay in Kainish's hands. It was lighter than the usual balls, but something about it felt powerful. At dawn, they slipped back into the city. The tournament's final was near, and the ball court was packed to bursting. The people whispered about the outlawed Jaguar Warriors, about the girl who had dared defy the gods. Some saw them as heroes, others as cursed. King Pacal sat upon his throne, his face inscrutable. Balam stood at his side, and Palenque had joined Tikal, his betrayal complete. The Jaguar Warriors entered the court under false names, presented as a team from a remote village. The crowd was skeptical, But when the ball was thrown in, the game erupted into motion. Tikal, led by Palenque and now strengthened by Palenque, was like a storm. Their attacks were brutal, their shots precise. Ixchel took a hit to the chest that left him gasping, but he stayed standing. Ixchel, disguised and swift as the wind, stole the ball and passed to Jackskin. He struck score, but Tikal countered fiercely. Palenque, with his strength and cunning, focused on Ixchel. He suspected her identity, his eyes narrowing whenever she moved. Once, he lunged at her, his hip slamming into her side, and she fell with a stifled cry. Ixchel rushed forward, blocking Palenque and giving her time to rise. "Stay focused," he shouted. The match was tight, point for point. The crowd roared, drums thundered. Ixchel felt the ancient ball in his hands, guiding his movements as if it had a will of its own. He passed to Hunahpu, who despite his injury leapt and struck it with his knee. The ball soared through the ring, score. But Tikal would not yield. Palenque made an impossible shot, and Palenque stole the ball from Jackskin with a dirty tackle. The score was tied, and the sun crept toward the horizon. Soon, Zotz's disguise would fade. Then it happened. In a moment of triumph, Palenque tore off Ixchel's helmet. Her face, still partially disguised, revealed enough. The crowd gasped and Balam cried out, "It is her, blasphemer!" Guards began to move, but Ixchel shouted, "Let us finish the match. If we win, it is Chaac's will." The king raised his hand, silencing the people. "Play," he commanded, his voice like stone. "The gods will decide." The final minute was a whirlwind of chaos. The ball bounced wildly, and Ixchel saw his chance. He sprinted, dodged Palenque's strike, and passed to Ixchel. She leapt her body an arc and struck the ball with her hip. It flew perfect through the ring. The crowd erupted. The Jaguar Warriors had won, but before they could celebrate, guards stormed forward. Ixchel was seized and Ixchel thrown to the ground. Palenque's laughter echoed, "You won, but you die all the same." Then the unexpected came. The sky darkened, thunder rolled. Rain, heavy and cold, poured over Palenque. The people cried out in joy, priests fell to their knees. Chaac had spoken, the king rose. "The gods have judged," he declared. "The Jaguar Warriors are free." But Palenque was not finished. He drew his knife, ready to strike Ixchel in the chaos. Ixchel saw it, lunged, and kicked the weapon away. Guards seized Palenque, and his schemes were crushed. In the rain stood Ixchel and Ixchel, their team at their side. They had won, saved the city, but danger was not gone. Palenque would return, and drought could come again, but for now they were heroes. Chapter 4. The rain fell like a forgiving shroud over Palenque, its drops drumming against the stones of the ball court and the pyramid steps. The people cheered, their voices mingling with the roar of thunder, as if Chaac himself applauded the Jaguar Warriors' victory. Ixchel stood at the center of the court, drenched, his chest heaving with exhaustion and relief. Ixchel, still held by the guards, met his gaze with a smile carrying both triumph and weariness. Hunahpu and Jackskin stood at his side, their faces radiant despite bruises and blood. They had won the tournament, proven that the gods were on their side, but Ixchel felt the battle was not yet over. Palenque, now bound and guarded, glared at them with eyes burning with hatred. His betrayal had failed, but his ambition was unbroken. King Pacal rose from his throne, his feathered headdress gleaming in the rain. The crowd fell silent, their cheers dying under his raised hand. "The Jaguar Warriors have spoken for Chaac," he proclaimed, his voice echoing over the court. "The rain has returned, their courage has saved Palenque." But he paused, his gaze sweeping toward Ixchel. "A woman on the court is blasphemy, the law is clear, the punishment is death." Ixchel felt his heart sink. He stepped forward, despite the guards' spears rising toward him. "No," he cried, "Ixchel won for all of us. If the gods were displeased, why does it rain? Chaac has judged." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, others shouted in protest. Priest Balam, Ixchel's father, stood beside the king, his face a mask of shame and anger. "She is my daughter," he said, his voice trembling, "but she has defied the gods. The sacrifice must be made." Ixchel fought against the guard's grip. "I played for Palenque," she shouted. "Not for glory, not for power, for the people. If my blood must be spilled, Let it be on the ball court, not an altar." Her words struck like lightning. The people began shouting, some in support, others in confusion. Inish saw a spark of hope. He turned to the king. "Let us play one final match," he said. "If we win, Ixchel is forgiven. If we lose, we take the punishment together." Pacal regarded him, his eyes narrowing. Palenque, who had heard the proposal, struggled against his ropes. "Give me a team," he roared. "Let me crush them and prove their weakness." The king considered, rain streaming down his face. At last he nodded. "So be it. One final match. The Jaguar Warriors against Palenque's team. The victor decides Palenque's future. The losers will be sacrificed at sunset." The crowd erupted, divided between terror and excitement. A chill ran down Inish's spine. They were exhausted, wounded, and Palenque now had the chance to gather the best warriors from Tikal and other cities. But he looked at Ixchel, who nodded despite her chains. They had no choice. This was their last chance. Zotz, the shaman, appeared at their side as if she had melted from the rain. "You have the ball from the chamber," she whispered. "It is blessed by the ancient heroes. Trust in it and in yourselves." They were given a few hours to prepare. In a hidden glade near the river, they bandaged their wounds and ate what Zotz could provide, cornbread and fruit. Hanapu winced as he moved his injured arm. "We are at a disadvantage," he said. "Palenque will choose warriors who are fresh. We're barely alive. We have something they don't," Ixchel replied, her voice steady. "We fight for each other." Yaxkin, always the strategist, smiled faintly. "And we have the ball. I felt it during the match. It moves differently, as if it chooses its own path." Inish nodded, his hand resting on the ancient rubber ball. It was lighter than the usual ones, yet its surface seemed to pulse beneath his fingers. "Then we use it, and we play smart. Palenque is strong, but he is arrogant. That is his weakness." As the sun began to sink toward the horizon, the people gathered once more at the ball court. The rain had eased to a drizzle, and the court was slick, making every step treacherous. Palenque had assembled a fearsome team, Tikal veterans, a swift player from Kapan, and himself as captain. Their armor gleamed, their eyes were cold. Inish felt the weight of the crowd's stares, their mix of hope and doubt. Balam stood by the altar, ready to perform the sacrifice if they failed. The drums began to beat, the ball was thrown in, and the game exploded. Palenque was like a jaguar, swift and brutal. He struck the ball with his hip, sending it flying toward the ring, but Inish hurled himself forward and blocked it with his elbow. Pain burned like fire, but he stayed on his feet. Ixchel stole the ball, her movements like a dance. She passed to Yaxkin, who shot, but the ball struck the rim. Palenque's team countered and scored. The match was a battle from the first moment. Palenque's warriors played dirty. A kick here, an elbow there. Hanapu took a blow to the face and staggered, blood dripping from his brow. But he rose again, stubborn as stone. Inish and Ixchel moved as one, their passes flawless. The chamber's ball seemed to listen to them. It bounced just right, slipping from the enemy's grasp. Midway through the game, the score was even. The crowd was a living beast, their cries shaking the ground. Inish saw Palenque whisper to one of his players, and moments later Ixchel was struck by a brutal tackle. She fell hard, gasping for breath. Inish rushed to her side, but she waved him off. "I'll manage," she hissed. "Focus," he nodded, but rage burned within him. Palenque would not win, not like this. He seized the ball, charged toward the ring. Palenque's fastest player, the runner from Kapan, tried to block, but Inish feinted and passed to Yaxkin. Score, but Palenque was relentless. He stole the ball, swept past Hanapu, and shot. The ball passed through the ring, and his team roared. Time was slipping away. The sun was now a red glow on the horizon. If they did not win soon, the sacrifice would begin. Inish gathered the team during a brief pause. "We have one chance," he said. "The ball is with us. Play as we did at dawn when we trained in secret. We are the Jaguar Warriors." Ixchel nodded, her face resolute. For Palenque, the final minute was a whirlwind of movement. The ball bounced, and Inish caught it. Palenque charged, but Inish ducked, passing to Ixchel. She ran, her body like an arrow, and leapt. Her hip struck the ball perfectly, sending it sailing through the ring. Score, but Palenque countered immediately. He stole the ball, shot, and missed. Ixchel seized the rebound, passed to Hunahpu. Despite his injuries, Hunahpu surged forward, striking the ball with his knee. It flew, but Palenque leapt, blocking with an elbow. The ball rolled free. Chaac saw his chance. He dove, struck the ball with his hip, and it soared toward the ring. Time stood still. The crowd held its breath. The ball hit the rim and passed through. Victory! The court erupted in chaos. The people screamed, some threw flowers, others wept. Chaac fell to his knees, exhausted. Ixchel rushed to him, and they embraced, the rain mingling with their tears. Hunahpu and Ixchel shouted with joy, their voices lost in the roar of the crowd. The king rose. "The gods have spoken," he declared. "The Jaguar Warriors are Palenque's heroes. Ixchel is forgiven. Let no one question Chaac's will." Palenque, defeated, was thrown into the dungeon. Balaam, shaken by his daughter's courage, fell to his knees and begged her forgiveness. Ixchel embraced him, but her eyes turned to Chaac. "We did it," she whispered. The rain continued, and soon the fields would flourish again. But Chaac knew their journey was not over. Pok-a-tok was more than a game, it was their heritage, their bond to the gods. He took the ball from the chamber, now their trophy, and felt its warmth. "We will play again," he said, "for the future." And in the heart of Palenque, beneath the song of the rain, a legend was born of the Jaguar Warriors, those who defied gods and men, and won. Epilogue: the rains have returned to Palenque, washing the blood from the stone court, where the Jaguar Warriors carved their names into eternity. Chaac and Ixchel stand among their people, no longer outcasts, but heroes, their bond forged in the fire of pok-a-tok. The ancient ball, blessed by forgotten spirits, rests now in the temple, a silent witness to their triumph. The fields bloom once more, and the children of Palenque mimic the game, their laughter mingling with the jungle's song. Yet Palenque's shadow lingers, his fate a warning whispered in the night. The gods, ever watchful, have spoken through Chaac's tears, but their favor is fleeting. Chaac gazes at the stars, knowing the court may call again. Ixchel, her spirit unbroken, vows to teach others the game that defies fate. Together, they have woven a saga into Palenque's stones, a tale of defiance and unity that will echo through generations. As the moon rises over the pyramids, the Jaguar Warriors' fire burns eternal, a beacon for those who dare to challenge the gods.